All right, friends, we are going to do a different kind of video just in case you want to join us, because we realized that this source that we're reading of this Jesuit missionaries' journals and writings is a little tricky to read. So we're gonna read the next part of it for you or with you if you want to join us. So Caleb, so far, what is the civilization that we have decided to study this week?
The Chico Norte.
Okay, and
Norte Chico.
where are they? Where were they thriving? And
in South America, on the western part, right? Western coast.
Okay, in what country is it now?
Peru.
Okay, and how do we know that they lived there and how old they were?
They used organic materials which can be dated pretty easily.
Okay, how would they be dated? Would they use a certain kind of science for that?
They would probably use carbon-14 dating.
Okay.
Right.
And when they do that, is that an exact science?
Not exact, but better than some dating forms.
Okay. So when they do that, around what time period do they think that those civilizations were flourishing? Well, they say that they were building their pyramids at the same time that the first Egyptian pyramids were built. So when would that be?
A long time ago.
Well, you have this handy dandy timeline with you, do you?
I do.
Yeah? Okay. So, can you tell me when the Egyptian civilization shows up on your handy dandy timeline?
Circa 3100 BC, but it doesn't say when they started building the pyramids.
Right. So most of the pyramids, actually, a lot of people date them older than 3100 BC, more like 3300. But it's remember, we have that nice little C in front of it. That C means what? Around this time. So it's a long time ago, so we can't get exact dates. But so around 3000 BC, how many years ago was that to you?
5,000 years.
Plus, right?
Yeah.
So a long time ago.
2020.
All right. So what's the weird thing about the Norte Chico? What's some of the weird things about them that you can remember?
Well, they used strings and knots as a language.
So why do we think they use that as a language if we can't translate it?
Because we can't find any other purpose they could have served.
Okay. Well, it's actually because the Incas used the same type of technique, and that can be translated. So the Incas used the talking knots, and I think they're called quipu, right? Quipu. And so those devices with all the different strings coming off of them, different colors and different kinds of knots, they call those quipu, and the Incas used them later. Where do the Incas show up on your handy dandy timeline?
South America.
Where? I mean, what time period? When?
Circa 1200.
Okay, so 1200 what?
1200 BC.
Is it BC?
AD.
AD. So that's quite a while later. But there's what interesting to me is that this is recently discovered, this Chico Norte, or the people, the archaeologists in South America, in Peru, that study them. What do they call them?
The corral something.
Corral Supe people.
Yeah.
Right. So they're the same, though. They're just different names for the same people, and neither one of them are what those people would have called themselves. We just don't know what they called themselves.
Yeah.
Okay. So this stuff that we're reading from this Jesuit missionary named, what was his name?
Jose de Acosta.
Acosta. Acosta? Oh, because long O in Spanish. Okay. Acosta. So, why would we be reading what he says?
Because he's the oldest source we can find that's been translated into English.
Okay. And when was he there? And what did he write about?
He was there in the 1550s to 80s.
Mm-hmm.
And
Well, I don't think he was there in the 1550s because he wasn't born until 1539.
He was there mid to late 1500s.
Okay. Yep. And what was he doing there?
He was sent there to preach to the natives, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he also wrote a book, The Natural and Moral History of the Indians.
Okay. Why did he call them the Indians?
Because Columbus thought that he had gone to India, and so he called them Indians, and the name stuck.
Yes. Okay. So how does Columbus relate to Jose de Acosta? De Acosta.
They lived within 100 years of each other, and Acosta probably might not have been there if Columbus hadn't gone there first.
Okay. Were they from the same place?
Yes, they were both from Spain.
Okay. They were both from Spain. They were both probably under the rule of Isabel and Ferdinand, right?
Yeah.
Why were the Spanish going over there so much?
Because they wanted to. They wanted all the gold.
Okay. So, what were they called on your timeline when the Spanish were exploring all over in the Americas?
Spanish conquistadors in the Americas.
Okay. So, was this guy coming over for the gold?
No. Maybe.
Maybe.
I don't think so.
Well,
he's coming to preach to the natives, right?
Okay, right. So they wanted to Christianize the people who lived in South America. Well, that was what some of their main priority was, and some of them that was not their main priority. Their main priority was to
get gold,
get the riches and explore and learn, and there was a lot of different priorities that people had for coming there, but some people did have good motives. Some of the Spanish missionaries did really want people to know the true God. Okay, and in those societies that they found there, what kind of things were they seeing? Do you know what kind of worship was going on in the South American?
Human sacrifice.
Right, there's some pretty bad idol worship and some pretty brutal rituals that they were doing, and so they were probably pretty shocked, and they wanted them to know the real God. So, all right, so this is controversial, right? So you guys could do some research about the Spanish conquistadors and the Spanish Inquisition. What did the Spanish Inquisition have to do with our friend Jose?
Well, he was a Jew, but the Inquisition happened and he was gonna get thrown out.
Well, he personally wasn't. The Spanish Inquisition happened before his life, but
so it counts, maybe.
Maybe some of his ancestors. So his ancestors converted to Christianity, right?
Yeah.
And what are they called if they were from Jewish background and they converted? What was he called?
A converso.
Converso. And they had a different name if you were Muslim, and I can't remember what that was. If you were Muslim and you converted. So, but he didn't convert. His family had converted before his time. He and how many brothers did he have? Do you remember?
He had 4 brothers.
Okay, and he was the middle brother.
Yeah.
And 4 out of 5 became missionaries or priests in this order, Jesuit order. So I don't know where the other ones went, but the other 3 brothers. Well, no, I mean, did they go to South America, or did they stay in Spain, or what did they do? I don't know.
What did the other one brother do?
I don't know what he did either. Okay, so what year, do you remember what year he would have gone to Peru?
He would have gone...
Come here, Juno. Sorry. This is informal conversation. So we have Juno and we're sitting by the stove, cozy and relaxed on the beanbag, and we are enjoying school at home. But, okay, so he went to Peru and he started keeping a journal. And while he was keeping his journal, he was answering questions that he wondered. And he also kind of reveals some things about the way that people thought then, the way that the kind of the worldview that at least he had. He reveals his worldview and the questions, the way that they interpreted the Bible and the way they interpreted science and the way they were educated. So what is interesting about the way he was educated?
He knew the Bible, and he knew about the Greeks and all the philosophers.
Yes, so he knew a lot, and he could actually quote. He had memorized huge passages of Greek philosophy because he's writing in Peru. He doesn't have all his books of Plato and Aristotle and Pliny and all this, but he's quoting them, so he had memorized them. So, Caleb, what did the ancients, but that's what he calls them, what did the ancients think about the equator?
Well, they thought that it was super hot down there because they would go down in Africa and they would get super hot.
So as they tried to go through the Sahara Desert,
yeah,
it just kept getting hotter and hotter. And what did they think they would find if they ever got to the equator?
It was all on fire.
And what'd they call it?
The burning zone.
They called it the burning zone, and they said nobody's ever going to be able to connect the bottom part of the world with the top part of the world and go back and forth because it's too hot there in the middle. That's basically on fire at the equator. Well, that's interesting. Was that right?
No.
No. It's hot there, but...
Yeah, it's hot in Africa.
Right. Well, it's hot by the equator. It's...
Yeah.
But
fire.
It's not on fire. Okay. So he talks about that. And he talks about some other things, and it's very fun to read. But what's weird about it to you? What's weird about his writing?
Um, um, I don't know.
You think his spelling is amazing?
Well, I don't have his original journal. I have a translation.
Okay, so right, so he wrote in Spanish, and it was translated into English early, and it was translated into proper English, but their proper English is different than what we would call proper English, and their spelling and use is not a lot different than what we do, but it's a little bit different. So you're right, he wrote in Spanish, so it wasn't his spelling, it was the translation. But it's nice that it was translated early, closer to the time that he wrote it, so that we can see that. All right, so that is an introduction to his work, which is called The Natural and Moral History of the Indies. And he wrote it when he got to Peru, and I can't remember when exactly he got to Peru. It was like 1570 something. So, and then he spent a long time there, like 12 years, I think. But in those days, by this time, this is Columbus sailed in what year?
1492.
Okay, so this is less than 100 years after Columbus sailed. And now they're sailing all the time. There's lots and lots of Europeans coming and going. And so it didn't take long for them to set up even government colonies and get everything start conquering. That's what conquistador was conquering. So they were colonizing, making this their territory. Okay, so we're now going to start on page 45 of the first book. So that he wrote like sections called books, and then in those books there are chapters. And this is the link that I sent you in an email. It is a digital version of this book, and it's the peopling of the new world is this section. And this is what chapter, Caleb? It's in Roman numerals. So what chapter is that?
16.
Chapter 16, and it's page 45 on this version. And this chapter title is By What Means the First Men Might Come to the Indies, the which was not willingly nor of set purpose. So he really thinks that they did not get there on purpose. Somehow they accidentally got there. And what's funny to me is how he talks about part of his argument is, look, Columbus ended up where he didn't mean to be, so probably these guys did too. So he's trying to figure out how people got to South America. Now it is time to make answer to such as say there are no antipodes. I don't know what that is. And that this region where we live cannot be inhabited. The huge greatness of the ocean did so amaze St. Augustine that he could not conceive how mankind could pass to this newfound world. So he didn't think you could cross the ocean and get over there. But seeing on the one side, we know for certain that many years ago there were men inhabiting in these parts. So likewise we cannot deny that the scripture doth teach us clearly that all men are come from the first man. Without doubt we shall be forced to believe and confess that men have passed hither from Europe, Asia, or Africa. Yet must we discover by what means they could pass. So what is his worldview about ancient history?
His view is that people, and they had to come from Europe, Asia, or Africa.
And why did he think they had to come from Europe, Asia, or Africa? They couldn't have evolved on South America.
Because no one had brought up the idea of them anyone evolving from monkeys.
Okay. And he said the scripture clearly teaches that all men are come from the first man. And the first man was over not in South America. So that's his worldview. And he can tell because he's there and he sees the ancient ruins. He knows people have lived here a long time. And they had to have come from the same place that I came from, or my ancestors came from. It's not likely that there was an other Noah's Ark. And this is funny if you're reading along with us how they spelled it, Noah's Ark. It's kind of funny. By the which men might be transported from the Indies, and much less any angel to carry the first man to the new world, holding him by the hair of his head. Like the prophet Habakkuk.
Habakkuk?
Okay, no, that's not how they... Oh, maybe. Because their prophet spelling, because we saw Obadiah, and it was not spelled at all like Obadiah, like we spell it. So, but by the hair of his head. So what are the two options that he's rejecting? Either that there was another Noah's Ark, or that
an angel carried
them over there by their hair. All right, this was not the airborne transportation that I was thinking of in class last week. But, okay, so he's saying that's not likely. For we entreat not of the mighty power of God, but only of that which is conformable unto reason and the order and disposition of human things. Wherefore these two ought to be held for wonderful and worthy of admiration, yea, to be numbered among the secrets of God. The one is how man could pass so huge a passage by sea and land. The other is that there being such multitudes of people, they have yet been unknown so many ages. For this cause I demand by what resolution, force, or industry the Indians could pass so large a sea, and who might be, where are we at? The inventor of so strange a passage. So how could they have come across either the land or the sea? It's both pretty huge distances. And who was the inventor of so strange a passage? Truly I have oftentimes considered, therefore, with myself, as many others have done, but never could I find anything to satisfy me. Yet will I say what I have conceived, and what comes presently into my mind, seeing that testimonies fail me, whom I might follow. And now we have to turn the page on the computer, which is not the same as turning the page in a book. Okay, suffering myself to be guided by the rule of reason, although it be very subtle. Spelled in an interesting way, subtle. It is most certain that the first man came to this land of Peru by one of these two means, either by land or by sea. And if they came by sea, it was casually and by chance, or willingly and of purpose. I understand by chance being cast by force of some storm or tempest, as it happens in tempestuous times. I mean done of purpose when they prepared fleets to discover new lands. Besides these two means, I see it not possible to find out any other, if we will follow the course of human things and not devise fabulous and poetical fictions, such as the angels carrying by the hair, maybe. For no man may think to find another eagle, as that of Ganymede, or flying horse, like unto Perseus, that should carry the Indians through the air. So what was that? That was illusion.
Yes.
So I got the Perseus one, but I didn't get the Ganymede one, so now I have to look that up. So there was an eagle that carried Ganymede. Okay, so we got to look that up. That's a reference to something that was well known, and that's an illusion. Okay, so it wasn't an eagle, it wasn't a flying horse, probably, that should carry the Indians through the air, or that peradventure these first men have used fishes as mermaids, or the fish called a Nicholas to pass them thither.
Nicholas?
Ooh, we gotta look that one up too. So it has a footnote, so we're gonna look that up. So fish called a Nicholas. By laying aside these imaginations and fopperies, that's an interesting word, let us examine these two means, the which will be both pleasant and profitable. First, in my judgment, it were not far from reason to say the first and ancient peoples of these Indians have discovered and peopled after the same sort as we do at this day. That is, by the art of navigation and the aid of pilots, the which guide themselves by the height and knowledge of the heavens, and by their industry in handling and charging of their sails according to the season. Why might not this well be? Must we believe that we alone in all our age have only the art and knowledge to sail through the ocean? We see even now that they cut through the ocean to discover new lands, as not long since Alvaro Mendana and his companions did, who parting from the port of Lima came alongst the west to discover the land which lieth eastward from Peru, and at the end of 3 months they discovered the lands which they called the lands of Solomon, which are many and great, and by all likelihood they lie adjoining to New Guinea, or else are very near some other firm land. So this is the time period where they didn't really, they were trying, as they found stuff, they were trying to map and guess what else was out there, because they didn't have maps of the whole world. They were just filling in the blanks. So, and even now, by commandment from the king and his council, they are resolved to prepare a new fleet for these lands. Seeing it is thus, why may we not suppose that the ancients had the courage and resolution to travel by sea, with the same intent to discover the land which they called Antichthon, opposite to theirs, and that according to the discourse of their philosophy, it should be with an intent not to rest until they came in view of the lands they sought. Surely there is no repugnancy or contrary in that which we see happen at this day, and that of former ages, seeing that the Holy Scripture doth witness that Solomon took masters and pilots from Tyre and Sidon, men very expert in navigation, who by their industry performed this voyage in 3 years. So, and then he has some references there. So I'm trying to think, where in the Bible does it say that Solomon took experts of navigation from Tyre and Sidon? So that's something to look up. Okay, so he's saying, hey, the Bible says Solomon was having people navigate and explore, and so why would we think that wasn't always happening? To what end, think you, doth it note the art of mariners and their knowledge? So could that have been talking about mariners and their knowledge with their long voyage of 3 years, or to give us to understand that Solomon's fleet sailed through the great ocean? Many are of this opinion, which think that St. Augustine had small reason to wonder at the greatness of the ocean, who might well conjecture that it was not so difficult to sail through, considering what hath been spoken of Solomon's navigation. But to say the truth, so he just set up a very good argument for, hey, they probably sailed over here, right? Do you think he supported that argument?
Yes.
I think he kind of set that up, but now he's gonna do this, and he keeps doing this. If you read previous chapter, he does this a lot. But now, to say the truth, I am of a contrary opinion. Neither can I persuade myself that the first Indians came to this new world of purpose by a determined voyage. Neither will I yield that the ancients had knowledge in the art of navigation, whereby men at this day pass the ocean from one part to another, where they please, the which they perform with an incredible swiftness and resolution. Neither do I find in all antiquities any marks or testimonies of so notable a thing, or of so great importance. Besides, I find not that in ancient books there is any mention made of the use of the iman or lodestone, nor of the compass to sail by. Yea, I believe they had no knowledge thereof. And if we take away the knowledge of the compass to sail by, we shall easily judge how impossible it was for them to pass the great ocean. Such as have any knowledge of the sea understand me well. For that it is as easy to believe that a mariner in full sea can direct his course where he pleases without a compass, as for a blind man to show with his finger anything, be it near or far off. So he just used a comparison, right? A simile here. It's as easy to believe that a mariner could just go direct his course with no compass as it is to believe that a blind man could point to anything with his finger. And it is strange that ancients have been so long ignorant of this excellent portent of the lodestone. So basically how important the lodestone is. And the lodestone is the stone with the magnetic charge that made the compass work, right? Okay, so he's basically saying they had to have a compass. There's no way they could have got here without a compass. It was too important. For Pliny, who was so curious in natural causes, writing of this lodestone, speaks nothing of that virtue and property it hath always in turn the iron which it toucheth toward the north, the which is the most admirable virtue it hath. Aristotle, the